Missed this in-person chip.
I did, honestly. We talked to the players about it when our first team meeting on Thursday night. We had a compliance meeting, but we looked at it, and it was the last time we were in there as a group was 504 days ago on March 12th, 2020. So we learned that we did meetings outside. What they went through last year just to be able to play those 7 games was, extraordinary. And you've got to thank our administration and our doctors especially for getting us through what we got through. So, but it's good to get back to some sense of normalcy. But we also cautioned them that with this Delta variant, we still need to be really vigilant about what's going on right now, just because you're not out of the woods, even if you are vaccinated. So we're still trying to be really cautious. And you just go back to what happened with the NC State baseball program, making all the way to the semis, and then all of a sudden they get hit, and then they can't play in the championship game. So we're still going to be conscious of it. So. But it is good to be back out and doing somewhat close to normalcy. So.
Are you getting the entire team vaccinated? Is that a possibility?
Well, the UC system rule is if you're not vaccinated, you can't go to school. So if they're not vaccinated,
there exceptions or something?
Yeah, there are some kids that have applied for waivers, and they're in the process of that. But we'll be they just won't be able to play if either they have to get a waiver or they have to get vaccinated.
But it's not a significant portion of your team because that could.
No, we're probably at 98% right now. So.
Wait, they can't play if they apply for
They
a
can't
waiver?
go to school. Oh. No, if they apply for a waiver and the waiver's passed, then they're okay. But if the waiver gets denied, they have to get vaccinated. So.
And is that just based on maybe previous health conditions or anything?
Yeah, there's some medical and religious, I think.
Religious.
Yeah, and it's a UC system rule, so it's not just. It wasn't like the UCLA doctors here made the rule. I think it's in collaboration. Everybody talking to David Shaw. I think Stanford has the same exact rule, and there's a lot of places that are in that. So I think when we get to the Hawaii game, they'll either be vaccinated or the waiver was approved. So.
There's been a lot of just questions about the vaccine, obviously, and for kids like these, did you bring in experts to kind of answer?
Yeah, we rely on our medical staff for everything. So again, it's their choice. And if there's anybody that had any issues, we did one-off meetings with our medical. Dr. Goldman has been tremendous through this whole thing. Him and Dr. McAllister have been great with this. So we actually met last year over Zoom once a week with our medical staff and all the players and their families because, as this first came out, we all learned a lot of things. We talked about, I remember in that meeting on March 12th, we were going to go for break. We were just going to flatten the curve, and then we're going to start spring ball back up. That's about all we knew about COVID at the time, and a lot has changed since then. So I don't know if I've heard flatten the curve in over 500 days either. So, but anything medical like that, we rely totally on. Scott, can you tell them to turn it down a little bit for us? Anything. Good tune. We're getting melodies now. Anything medical, we just defer to them, and they have all the answers instead of them trying to tell me and us interpret it as coaches. So we have our players have great access to those guys. So.
A couple of personnel questions. Jay Toria, what's the status of his eligibility?
You know what? I haven't even asked that question. So he's out here practicing full speed, and we haven't had Erin Atkins, our compliance director, is. She was out here yesterday. She'll be out here again today. But we're going full speed ahead, and he's practicing full speed ahead. So.
In the first practice, I know this is kind of preliminary, but I saw Bo Calvert kind of working at that Raider spot. Is he going to get a look there?
Yeah. Again, it's the multiplicity of our defense. So, Damian Sellers, Jeremiah Trojan. There's a lot of guys that play both. Carl's a safety that plays there. So, I think the one thing you have to be conscious of who you're moving around and what they can handle mentally. And we could put Bo on offense and he would handle it mentally. He's just such a sharp football player. So I think just trying to look at depth and maybe different packages of, can you play with multiple linebackers on the field? And then if they understand really just job swapping. So he'll continue to do both because he can handle doing both.
Coach, do you have any
updates
on Paul Grattan? Is he practicing with the team this
week?
Yeah,
Paul's practicing with him.
Are there any team discipline that's being considered for the reports that came out this week?
Everything that we handle with our players is done internally.
In good standing. We talked about this last week.
Oh, you guys had Westbrook on campus yesterday?
Yeah.
Did he talk to the team, or was that just
No,
a surprise
he just
to
stopped
you,
by.
or?
I think he was coming over to practice. I met Russ when we played at Oklahoma. He was on our sideline when he was still. I think he was still with the Thunder then. I'm a big Russell Westbrook fan. I don't know if there's a tougher day in, day out guy. And he's just a great, I know a bunch of our players are huge Laker fans, and they were fired up. I think all of Los Angeles is fired up to get Russ back home. And Russ is always around. He played here. His wife played here. He lives local. But just a great guy, and we were excited for him. I was just happy, and I told him he's a hell of a football player. First time I ever watched him play, I was in San Francisco, and they were playing Golden State in the playoffs when he was at Oklahoma, and I was like, whoa. And then he said one of his first loves. He said he was a running back, outside linebacker in high school. So
Where would you play him?
he would play anywhere he wants, and I'd be smart enough to play him both ways too. So. I think he'd be a matchup nightmare for people to cover, but his toughness and physicality, I think he'd be a hell of a defensive player. So,
what does that do?
We can find a couple Russell Westbrooks out there, we'd be okay.
What does that do generally when you have guys like Russell Westbrook coming by or Tom Brady coming to practice for the program, just having those big names, big faces for your players to see?
I think it's the one thing about, I would say, both Tom and Russell that stand out about them is both immensely talented, but I don't know if you can find two guys that have better work ethics. And I think the message to our players all the time, and we do have a bunch of NFL guys that use this facility in the off season, but there's not one NFL guy who comes here and runs a 10-yard sprint and then picks his sweats up and leaves. It's, you're almost kind of mesmerized by their work ethic. And I've seen Tom throw to some of our receivers, and our guys 45 minutes later, he's still going, and they're and he's 43 years old, and our kids are 19 going. We're still going, but that's what makes those guys great. And I think when our players get a chance to see that, what it takes to be the best at your sport, whether it's basketball or whether it's football, it's that unrelenting work ethic that those guys have, and how dedicated they are to their craft.
Talk a little bit about Devin Kirkland, what you saw of him in spring, and what you expect from him.
Yeah, Devin did a really nice job in the spring. The one thing, you're never sure when a kid gets in here, how quickly does he pick things up, and he did from the jump. Now, one thing is he was coached really well in high school. Scott Altenberg was actually a UCLA guy, is a tremendous high school football coach. And so when Devin came in here, I think the transition, especially for all those kids that come in from the Trinity League, it's maybe a little easier. Blaylock was like that when he came in from Bosco, but he's picked things up really quickly. He competes. Sometimes a freshman stands out for the wrong reasons, and you never noticed, him, like there's a blown coverage, there's a guy running deep down the field, and he's in the flat saying, no, I didn't know what I had. I think he's really smart, he's really competitive, and he's got a skill set, he's got length. He really is a guy that has a tremendous work ethic. Like, he wants to be a great football player and works at it. He doesn't just talk about it. So we're excited about, as he continues to grow, and everything around here is earned. So as if he continues to work the way he's worked through the spring, and then in yesterday's training session then we expect to see him on the field.
Quentin said yesterday, obviously this team has finally experienced. It's taken a few years to get to this point, but how do you see that experience kind of showing up even in training? I know it's only been one day, but how do you expect that it will show up?
Yeah, I think part of it, any really good team is player-led, not coach-fed. And I think this team is really player-led. We've got leaders on both sides of the ball, whether it's Q Lake and Q Knight and Bo and Odor and Otito and that group on the defensive side of the ball, and then Dorian and Sam Marazzo, John Gaines, Greg Dulcich, Chase Cota, guys that have played a lot of football, significant snaps, and know what it looks like, and it's not about just talking about it, it's actually going out and working it. And so KD, our strength coach, talked about how hard they worked in that time off from when we finished spring training to when we got back out the field yesterday. So they haven't missed a step from that standpoint, but you got to have great leadership for that, and I think that's what we have right now.
Just Keegan Jones was out yesterday. What's his status injury-wise? Is he going to be back soon?
You will hear this more than once from me, and Keegan is unavailable.
Okay, got it.
So that's a school thing that for everybody's status, and just so if you're going to ask me about anything, I'm not going to be repetitive, but anybody asks me about it, I'll give you the same answer, that they're just unavailable. So right now, Keegan is unavailable.
All right, thanks, Coach.
We're good, guys?
Yep.
All righty. Thanks.
Thank you.